This video is going to be about what are the causes of addiction. And I think this is a really important topic to understand because a lot of times there can be some confusion when getting into recovery, like why the hell am I dealing with this, right? I thought I was a normal person for most of my life. That's what I thought. I thought I had no issues. My life was going as planned, right? Was going to school, graduated, etc. And now all of a sudden I'm in this like dark night of the soul. I'm like, what the hell is going on? And so it took me a while to understand like the reasons why I struggle with addiction, and I had some of the stuff come up that has come up. And in understanding it, I'm much better able to accept it, and in turn accept myself and who I am, and then in turn take the action to better my life in the way that is more conducive to myself and to others. So the first thing that causes addiction is, and this is, again, this is, take this with a grain of salt, this is my opinion, it's trauma. So trauma is something that every human being deals with, from coming out of the womb to the first day we go to school, right? This isn't some unique thing that's only specific to people with addiction. I think everyone has a bit of trauma in them. The thing with people with addiction, though, is that we have never really learned how to process it properly. So people that are like kind of what we call normies, they've had traumatic stuff happen. Maybe they lost a loved one at an unexpected time. Again, maybe just like little things like the first time you got dropped off at daycare, and they were able to process that in the moment. For some reason, beknownst to me, I was not able to, and I think many of you were not able to as well, and therefore that trauma kind of sat in the soul and just festered and grew and manifested. Of course, this is all speculation. Take this with a grain of salt, and you know yourself more than anyone. So, the question would be, what trauma have you dealt with, and how do you think it still plays a role in your life? Because I'll give some examples here. So for me, I was adopted, right? So from a very young age, I experienced a huge loss when I was first separated from my birth mom right at being born. And then 3 months later, once I grew an attachment to my foster mom, I was taken from her as well. And I remember my parents saying that the whole plane ride home from Korea to the US, we lived in Minnesota, I was just crying the whole time. So I was not able to process that in a very healthy way. Healthy or not, right? I was 3 months old, but that trauma still lives within. And a lot of times when I'm feeling that sadness come up, I want to escape. I want to escape with watching television, with eating, with social media, all the above, checking this YouTube channel to see if people have subscribed. So, hey, I'm no saint here as well. And over the years, again, I've just learned more and more that, okay, this is kind of who I am. There's a lot of things I can do to mitigate this. AKA, I did a lot of trauma work, so I went into therapy. That was something I really recommend for folks that are getting into recovery. I don't do therapy anymore because I realize at some point I have to do my own therapy and be my own kind of counsel and guidance. Plus, it's expensive. So, but at the time, it was really helpful to be able to talk through some of these issues that I kind of suppressed and felt shame about since a young age. So, coming full circle, how does that manifest into addiction? Well, again, the pain of some of those experiences can be so much that the only thing that makes sense is to use. So, smoke marijuana, drink alcohol, watch porn, etc. Whatever the vice is or behavior, even just like obsessively pursue relationships, etc. It's all to kind of make us forget about that pain that I was trying to avoid, and that maybe you were trying to avoid as well. So again, coming full circle, guys, trauma, it's no joke, and it's, again, in every single person. However, there are things we can do to address it, including talking about it, including IFS therapy, which is something I started doing recently, which is I talk to those different parts of myself that were wounded and kind of abandoned by myself or by others in childhood, or even in my teenage years, college years. It doesn't really matter. Trauma can happen at any moment. And in better understanding and seeing those parts, having compassion, they in a sense kind of resolve, and they just kind of get to take that deep breath. They understand that, hey, I'm finally being seen by the most important person in my life, which is myself, for those parts, and for you, for those parts in you. And then it can kind of just relax. It's like, okay, I got what I needed, and I can stop asking for attention, which is kind of what trauma is doing. Is just like, give me give me attention right now, please. I need it. And of course, we're in the real world, so it's like, hey, I got shit to do. So we could talk about trauma for hours, and we'll definitely discuss more of this on the channel. Let's move into the next one though, which is biological predisposition. So, what do I mean by this? I mean that some people are just kind of have that wiring to be a little more pleasure seeking than others. And I've noticed this. I have friends that don't have really strong addictive personalities. Maybe there's like a vice here or there, right? Like they'll drink beer on the weekend, or they like watching TV or whatever. But it never got to the degree that I think it got for myself and so many of you, that it was just like, dude, my life just blows, right? It seems like some of those folks were much able to kind of navigate life in an easier fashion. They never, got in trouble with the law. They weren't selling dope. They weren't, smoking from sun up to sundown. They were kind of just living their normal life. And I was always like, why do they get to do that and I don't? This is so confusing. But over time, again, I learned that it's just kind of something that people are hardwired with. And the same way, like some people are genetically gifted in sports, it's kind of like this. We're genetically gifted to have addictions and kind of seek pleasure as much as possible. Now, I will share a caveat that I think all three of these things I'm going to talk with you about today are interconnected. So again, maybe because of the trauma, it did cause us to seek that pleasure seeking a little bit more versus someone who was able to work through trauma easier, etc. So you can look at it from one way, or you can look at it that they're all connected. Whatever works best for you. I look at them separately and together. It depends on the situation. So again, biological too. This can come from ancestral trauma. If you guys heard of that before, it's that stuff from our ancestors gets passed down through generations. So let's do an example. Maybe you were German, right, or Jewish, right? There's probably some ancestral trauma that got passed down from relatives that were in the Holocaust. Or maybe your family was in a really rough environment, like nomads or something, right? And so they were always looking for that next drink, always looking for that next meal. And then therefore, let's say you have an eating disorder, right? Or an addiction, that I'll say I've had that too. It could be something from that just biologically being passed down from generation to generation, to even though we're in a safe place today where we can get food at the snap of a finger, we can even order it online without even having to move besides our fingers. There still can be that like energy of, oh, I'm in survival, right? How do I get my next meal, etc. So yeah, this is something I definitely deal with too. I think maybe being Korean, came from a very disciplined lineage, and because of that, I'm very hard on myself. So again, guys, comment down below if you have any thoughts about this and how this plays a role into your life.